It's not available.
Oh, not available yet in India. Oh, you guys missing out. I love it. Google Music, Play Music they call it now. You can upload all your songs. All my phones, my wife's phone, my Android tablet, my Google TV can all access my music over the web, download it. So the idea is you'll have set-top boxes you put in your kitchen, in your bedroom. You won't have to plug your iPhone in. It'll just connect through your wireless network and access the Google network, and some of them will run a customized version of the Android OS. And the name that they have kind of hinted around is going to be called Android at Home. Let's not just have Android in your pocket, let's have Android in all aspects of your house, right? Each room has some sort of Android device, that somehow is running a version of the Android OS and interfaces with Google services. That's cool, I like that, right? You don't see Apple going that route, right? The big thing at Apple is they have the Apple TV, that although it sells well, people say Apple doesn't really encourage, or doesn't really market as well as they could. It still sells pretty darn well. I have one of those too, by the way. I'm not biased. I have an Apple TV in one room, a Google TV in another. I just choose the Google TV on my main TV because it can do more. Now they're saying Apple's going to release the physical Apple TV sometime this year, right? I think it's pretty much a given. I don't know how well that's going to sell. Physically, you're going to pay an Apple premium price for.
So with Google, right?
Yeah.
So with
Google, what Google does is they partner their. So I have a set-top to watch my Google TV. So plug my regular TV. Google actually partners with certain TV vendors like LG, Samsung, whatever, that add the Google OS into the TV. But it's just software running in there, right? You're not paying a premium for the hardware necessarily. You could pay a little more because it's like a feature, right?
No, but that's a huge business for
Yeah.
Google, right?
Yeah.
Because it's-
In the US, it hasn't done well. Google TV didn't sell well in the US. Logitech made the first set-top box, and they cut their losses like 3-4 months ago. They said, we're not making anymore, we're not making next generation, we've lost too much money on this. Whose fault is that? I don't know, right? I mean, Sony had Google Generation 1 in some of their TVs, and they had a set-top Blu-ray player, which is what I happen to use, which could plug in any TV and give you the Google capabilities, right? And there were some really cool things that did.
The set-top boxes in US, they connected to the internet.
Yes, by wireless.
Majority.
Yes, yes. I mean, you have to take advantage of most features like the web browser or streaming. Yes, you have to be connected to the internet. Yeah.
So you have a broadband at home that's connected to the
Yes.
set-top box.
Yes. Connected.
Is
Yeah.
that,
Either
is that very common?
I think every set-top box has it.
every set-top box in the U.S. now that does any type of streaming or whatever, yes, has that. Has a either wireless and/or hardline network option. And the TVs that have it built in also have either a hardline plug, or most of the new ones now come with wireless because they're realizing that people don't have broadband cables in every place of their house, right? For a while, they were charging extra money for third-party adapters, and people were like, "Well, I got to pay $50 more to get this wireless thing," built it into it. So they're starting to do that now.
They didn't release emulators for Google TV, right?
I don't believe so.
You can't develop on Windows. When I try to download
Yeah,
it's
it's a good
asking
question.
me
I don't know
license.
about much about Google TV development. It's a good question. I mean, Google TV is based on the Android OS, but I'm not sure on that. I haven't done any development or
On
testing of
Windows,
Google.
they didn't, they're not allowing us to develop. Only Linux, I think, Linux we.
Really? Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Okay. Yeah, I haven't done any development or testing of Google TV apps, but yeah. Maybe that's something I'll change with Google TV G2. Generation 2 Google TV is supposed, I'm pretty sure it'll be announced at Google I/O that'll be one of their big things this year because they've been saying summertime for the release, and I know manufacturers are already on board to build it into the TVs, so I think it's coming.
Can you run third-party apps on that?
Yes.
On your Google TV?
From the marketplace, there are marketplace, you can build apps that are designed. The original Google TV, you were very limited in what apps you could run when they updated everyone. So Google TV got the upgrade to 3.0 right when Ice Cream Sandwich got released right at the same time. So they fell their own process there. When they added 3.0 upgrade, the original Google TV had very limited access to apps and all, only whatever the vendor pushed down to you. So that was one of the criticisms of it. It's like you could be better than Apple by having an app store. With Google 3.0, yes, there are some apps that work on phones and that, and there are specific Google TV apps. Much smaller percentage of apps, but yes, absolutely. There is the Google Android. I don't know if they've upgraded the Play Store. The Play Store is available on Google TV devices running the 3.0 version of the OS. Okay. Okay. So this is more of people who are interested in business. Some Android phones are more business ready than others. True or false? True. Very true. And if you've been listening so far for everything we've talked about numerous reasons why. Yes. There are some phones that are more business ready. The myth, Androids do not make good business devices. The fact, Google has continued to add business-friendly features since 2.0, right? They added the support for Exchange ActiveSync and Exchange policies in their native email client. The open source nature has had vendors to add stuff. We talked about Motorola right? Motorola giving you the ability to encrypt devices that don't support it by default in a hardware level. There's third-party solutions. Cloud-to-device messaging, I talked about this earlier, Google's equivalent of APNS, was added in Android 2.2. That's why if you're doing any type of security applications, it's best to start on 2.2 as your base platform, because it has C2DM. Hardware level encryption was added base in 3.0. Google keeps increasing the number of APIs with each major and minor release that allow you to access the OS and control things. Ability to configure proxies. You have active sync security policy support, automatic lock password security. These are all things that are available. And we talked about Motorola earlier, their enterprise device management / also called EDM API. Hardware and application level encryptions, additional VPN options, additional API. Samsung has something similar now. HTC with all 4.0 devices has their SDK. There are other third-party companies like one called 3LM that partners with various vendors to add more security capabilities. They're out there, right? So the devices can be secure, and if you find yourself a mobile device management company, like Maz360, who can manage corporate devices, you can gain control over these devices and allow them to enter the business. Companies are starting to adapt. I'd say about a year and a half ago, I would say half the companies, maybe even 2/3, are like, no, we'll allow iOS and nothing else, right? It's probably getting closer to 2/3 now are like, okay, we'll allow iOS or Android.
A lot of users are now using the phones also for enterprise connectivity as using the phone as a modem.
As a what? Sorry.
Modem.
Oh, you mean like tethering and
Yeah, it's either to the
either tethering or Wi-Fi access point? Yes. In the U.S., they charge extra for that feature. I don't know if they do over here. In the U.S., I pay $20 more a month if I want to tether my phone. You know, I have to pay extra here. That's why I like the Google reference devices, because usually the vendor provider can't control that with their software, so I can get that. It's one of the benefits. But okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just checking how the business is.
Sure.
Trend is moving towards that. So basically, the need for eradicating the connectivity.
There's plus and minuses to each side, right? For example, in our software control solution for MDM, we have an option where we can force the user not to be able to enable tethering or roaming. But you're correct in that some companies may be like doing that because you don't have to pay someone, I can't see myself having a separate contract on my tablet and my smartphone, right? If I have my tablet with me, 99% of the time I have my smartphone with me. I'd rather just turn on hotspot share mode and just have my tablet, tether wirelessly to my phone, right? There's so many devices these days that, they want you to pay extra self features for, right? People wonder, what the tablet world's and all. Unless you have a specific business need for that device to always be online, I think when you're buying tablets, Wi-Fi is a good option because if you have a smartphone that tethering is available or hotspot mode, just share the connection. Now, be careful of usage. I'm sorry?
That's what BlackBerry Playbook did,
Playbook Playbook did a different form. Playbook went a step further security-wise and said you can't actually get corporate email on the Playbook. You had to tether to the BlackBerry phone to even see your corporate email. Now they changed that in BlackBerry Playbook 2.0, and you can now sync your corporate email directly with the Playbook. Too little, too late, probably. I'll be honest with you guys. I saw Playbook 2.0. I went to a demo that BlackBerry did. I'm very impressed with BlackBerry's OS. It's a shame that they're in such bad shape because if they could get back in the door, I think they could make a real impact. The problem is consumers, but BlackBerry introduced something that they call like work versus play zones. They're the best person so far to separate work versus play in one seamless interface. Like I can open up an email client on BlackBerry, see all my work emails, my personal emails in there, but behind the scenes, the data is completely segregated. So they gave me a centralized view, but I can't combine data from the two zones. They did an excellent job of that. Don't get me wrong, I found a few bugs in it too, but Playbook 2.0 was really what Playbook should have been the first time. And I'm impressed. As an overall OS and a navigational, it is a good OS. People give BlackBerry a bad name for that. They're going to have that OS available for smartphones later this year on their what they're calling their QNX BlackBerry OS 10 devices. But I'm sure we all see the articles and all that they're cutting jobs and losing money, and analysts aren't thinking they're going to stay around long. But you never know. People make comebacks. I'm not a person who wants to see BlackBerry go away. I'd love to see them come back and have another option. There's nothing wrong with flexibility. So
the thing on the Android, it's only the connectivity that's shared, right? Actually, it's not.
correct. Yeah, I think there's applications you can get or whatever to share your devices.
Is that on all the phones, or is it because I saw it on Samsung, the Galaxy?
Which one, the tethering and the
Yeah, you can set it as a.
anything with 2.3 and above, I think has it. Yeah. And again, the vendor may lock it down. Like on an AT&T phone in the US, when I click on it, it comes with a menu that says checking provider for availability, and then it'll come back and say, this feature has not been activated on your data plan. Please contact your provider to enable it, right? So, unfortunate.
It's good actually. Just
Yeah.
click and make it as a access point.
Yes.
You know,
Always add security. I mean, hopefully everyone here, I don't need to tell you that. It's usually open by default, although some of the vendors make it have a default as a web key at least. Put a key on it. You don't want people, using your data plan. Some guy starts streaming a YouTube video and suddenly your, 1 gig of data gets used up because you were sitting at the train station for an hour watching something while 2 other guys were too because you forgot to put a key on your
So
signal.
what are the cons? You said there are some cons in using this in the enterprise.
Just some companies worry that, when you have that open, that if other people somehow connect to your signal, they might be able to access device, any type of hacking tools or whatever. Just same type of security concerns you would have with anyone setting up, because essentially you're setting up an ad hoc network, right? You're setting up an ad hoc network on your phone to allow your device to connect to. Ad hoc networks in general can have security concerns and implications, same type of stuff, right? Outsiders getting in, doing the data, accessing your device somehow.
But that can be controlled using policy.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it can, yeah. And like I said, we've seen some companies who, using our software solution, will block tethering. So if someone turns it on, it either turns it off or tells them, if you don't turn this option back off in 5 minutes, I'm going to delete your corporate email account because I'm not going to let you access corporate resources, right, while you were using this
So we
feature.
try to have different user types.
Huh?
Different
Yes.
User types.
Yes. Yeah, multiple policies. The executive, you might not,
You might have-
depending on whether you want to inconvenience them, you might let them have more flexibility, or because of the sensitivity of their data, you might lock them down more. It's all corporate policy, right? It's a range. We're seeing a large range. Surprisingly, we've seen that only like a number I saw a few months ago, that only like less than a third of companies using our security solution were forcing users to put a passcode on their, to have some sort of locking mechanism on their device, and that shocked us. Where I really think that's the first thing you would want is to have it. But I guess they're trying not to inconvenience their users, or are they just in the process of evaluating before they start, putting down the hammer of what you can and can't do? You're going to see more of it, right? You're going to see companies start locking it down more. But that's the design. Okay, we can give you a corporate phone, totally locked down by us, and now you have to carry 2 phones. Or we can let you bring your own phone, which companies like, because then they don't have to buy the phone. Bring your own phone, your own plan, but you have to let us have a little bit of exposure and control on your device. Okay, so that was the end of what I have. Is there any questions or anything on this or on anything we've talked today before we wrap up?
If we are developing an application that should communicate between 2 devices, like something like depends on Bluetooth or something.
Mhm.
So how I can test that application? Let's say like on one device I have the same application, and second device also I have the same application, and these two should communicate with the Bluetooth or something.
Yeah.
Real-time game or something like that.
Yeah.
So how to test?
I'm actually on the personal side right now working on an application that I want to do something similar at, and I have the same concern as you. How am I going to test that? I don't have a straight answer for you on that. I mean, other than having physical devices and being able to talk to them, that's an example where you need just to have multiple devices to be able to try it out and all. Testing something like that, I wish I could tell you there was a simple way to do it or a tool, but unfortunately I don't know.
What is the complexity involved?
Yeah.
Because you need to run the NUM2.
Right. I mean, at some point you want to use it like you're using it, right?
Also many cases, right? Like the connectivity devices may disconnect in between. Like
Yeah.
those kind of cases. In that case, in what situation, how to handle that situation in app?
Right.
If it is
Additional
multi-connectivity,
experience will come, right?
you can have different case, right? Different scenarios of failure.
Now that's what I'm asking. How to
You'll prepare a test case.
How
Yeah.
to project those test cases? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, think of the scenarios, write them down. Simulate. Are you saying how do I simulate the scenarios? How do I like simulate a connection like where the Bluetooth drops or something? Is that right?
Real-time devices I'm asking.
He's asking best practices for testing
Best practices.
like
Like
an application needs 2 devices. What all things you have to consider?
Oh, okay. So okay, I got what you're saying. Okay, so I mean, when you're considering applications using, it's very similar when you're using any application that does connectivity, right? If I'm using an application that requires a connectivity to a cell tower or whatever, right? I have to test scenarios of what happens if the radio goes down or suddenly no connection and it comes back up, right? Simulate those types of things to me. I've been one of our partners in Europe actually has a lab where you can go in and it can and actually blocks out all outside signals, and they can actually turn on like the cell signal to let it into the lab into one corner. And so a device here has it, and they can turn off, and that device loses signal. Now, obviously, that's I don't know how much they pay for that lab, right? It's extremely hard, so you are limited, right? As stupid as it sounds, we've done stuff where we've told people go into the stairwell because I know there's a dead zone. It's kind of like you got to get creative with how you're finding stuff. Same challenge of GPS. How do I test when my application, changes cell towers or switches position or goes to a new area. You just got to do it sometimes, right? You just have to take the application and get out there and do it. There's no tools yet. Like I said, what you're saying there, to simulate Bluetooth scenarios, like Bluetooth dropping up and down, sounds like a great idea for someone to add to their automation or their testing product, right? A way to have a tool that can simulate Bluetooth signal weakening or getting stronger or dropping. Right now, you just kind of got to do it yourself. Like, okay, we know that the range of Bluetooth is 20 feet. Let's test at 5 feet, at 10 feet, at 15 feet, at 21 feet. And then let's come back in range and does the application, you know. It's generally, if you come up with the idea, you can find a creative way to test it. It may not be easy, it may be time consuming, but you can do it. In the mobile world, it's still a lot of manual testing. I mean, even when I was testing on desktop applications, and we wrote applications that would interface with like cellular cards, you know, the mobile, before everyone had a phone, people had the cellular cards for their laptops they would plug in to get a signal, right? Someone would ask, is your application going to detect when the signal drops to 0 and goes offline? You know, right there at the second floor in that stairwell, almost always I lose signal. So that's why I would walk my device to, see how the application responded, and you're like, well, yeah, but how do I debug or whatever, and find out when there is a problem, what happened? Logging. If you're a developer, put logging in your apps. The more the better. Make it an option. Too much logging can affect the application. Make it an option to enable debug mode. It's simple. Have an option in your apps to enable debug mode. No, please only do this if you're troubleshooting an issue, otherwise it could affect your battery life, right? Please put logging in your app. It's a QA person's best friend. Right? If you put the logging there, I'll learn how to read it and solve my own issues. Right? If the logging is bad, I'm not even going to bother trying to look at the log. I'm just going to punt the ticket off to the developer and say, tell me what's wrong with your app. Oh, the logs don't show anything. Well, you should have done better logging. You know, get them to put more logs in it, right? Once you give a developer enough logs that don't show the data he needs, he tends to put more logging in his app when he can, right? So absolutely, recreating the issue and having the agent collect logs so that you can, the QA guys and the developers can see what's going on. Just be careful not to overdo it by default. You don't want to fill the person's 8 gigabytes of cell phone memory with 3 gigabytes of your logs. Have them cycle out, right? Have them, have different debug logging levels that are somehow turned on by a shortcut key or an option in the settings, anything like that. Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. It was a pleasure speaking. If anyone has any questions when we're wrapping up, feel free to grab me. Me, anything to add for you, son?
Thanks.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yes.
Yep. When's the next mug event so everyone knows? Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's keep the conversation going. The next mug event is on 8th of July, 1 month from now. And that will be about developing web applications and hybrid applications. So the workshop will be, there will be a workshop. It will be on developing web applications, followed by a presentation by Prem for developing hybrid applications.
Web application for mobile or
Mobile
normal web application?
web applications, web apps.
So just one section, so there's a Bangalore Triad group.
Uh-huh.
So they conduct their events typically first Saturday.
Okay.
So in theory, this should have been another Bangalore Triad event. Today they didn't have.
Oh,
So
I
it
see.
created more conflicts and so.
Oh, okay, okay. So maybe.
Just make sure that, like, they typically have it about first Saturday or something.
Okay.
Not